This is seriously one of the most underrated herbs on earth. It's safe for almost everyone. It's helpful for so many things, and honestly, most people overlook it. If you've always thought that peppermint is good for nothing except bad breath and maybe belly aches, I've got some things to teach you today. And today we're going to dive into 10 surprising ways to use peppermint. Now let's start some seeds and we'll talk about it together. The first time that I ever used peppermint medicinally was when I was pregnant. And back then I didn't know diddly squat about herbs, but I was working at a preschool back then. And a lady at the preschool, she was like in her 70s and she was very like naturally minded. She was a wealth of wisdom. And I was so sick. I had morning sickness, but it was morning, noon, and night sickness. Anybody else have that? And this sweet lady that I worked with, she was like, honey, you need some peppermint. Peppermint will stop that nausea and you'll be able to function. And so I drank peppermint tea and I ate peppermint candy and anything peppermint I could find I used when I was pregnant, and it really did help. So I still use peppermint today and it is useful for so many things. The seeds are teeny tiny. Can you even see them in my hand? I mean, they are just itty bitty. So I'm starting peppermint seeds in some cups out here in the greenhouse. Just to kind of get a head start. We'll transplant these out into the garden this spring. But for now, I wanted to give them a little bit of a head start. And it's warm enough here in my greenhouse that we can start them growing. And now I'll be starting lots of other seeds too for other herbs and vegetables and flowers and all kinds of things. And I'm going to bring you along on the whole garden journey this year. So stay tuned. Later this week, I'm actually going to post a video about what we do in our garden in January. And we're going to walk you through what you should be doing right now to get ready for spring. But for now, let's get our little peppermint watered. Peppermint is so tiny, you just spread it on the surface of your soil and then you want to water it in, and that's all you got to do. So simple. And then once it starts to come up, you can delicately separate those little peppermint plants apart, give each one its own cup, and let it get big and established, and then you can move them to the garden. Now, peppermint is super invasive. If you're going to grow it, you need to know it will spread like wildfire. So you want to put your peppermint in either pots or containers, or even a raised bed is iffy because it can completely leave the raised bed and start growing in the pathways. But peppermint in pots or in tall raised beds, but never in the in-ground garden unless you want to grow an entire garden of peppermint. Have you ever had one of those headaches that feels like a tight band is like wrapped around your head and just squeezing so hard? These are tension headaches, and if you know, you know, they're absolutely terrible. The good news is peppermint is your best friend if you're facing a tension headache. You can either drink it as a tea, or what I like to do is actually like to infuse peppermint in oil. So like you're going to take jojoba oil or almond oil or coconut oil, whatever oil you like, and put dried peppermint leaves in it and let it infuse for about a month and then strain it out. And then the oil that is left is going to have all of the good properties of the peppermint in it. And when you get one of those tension headaches, you put a little of that oil in your hand, rub your hands together and warm it up. And then you want to rub it on the back of your neck, all the way around, on your temples, your forehead, just very gently. Now, batch test this first. Do a little spot on your hand or on the inside of your wrist just to see how your skin responds to peppermint. Most people do fine with it. But a peppermint infused oil or a peppermint tea can cut a tension headache in minutes. Another way that I love to use peppermint is for digestive support, specifically for digestive stagnation. Like if you need to get things moving, if you're bloated, kind of like after the holidays when you've had a lot of rich fatty foods that you're not used to, and that like I need to unbutton my pants and like just sit on the couch and take a nap feeling, peppermint, okay? Peppermint comes in and it soothes the digestive system, and it just brings gentle relief without any harsh pills. So if you struggle with a sluggish digestive system, drinking a cup of peppermint tea every morning might be enough to get things moving and get things a little more regulated for you. Now, another use for peppermint that I never see people talk about, but it works so well, and that is for emotional overwhelm or sort of like mental clutter. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're having one of those days where your mind is just all over the place and you can't quite like get your thoughts together, and maybe you're a little snappy with the people around you, you're overstimulated. Ever been there? In that situation, peppermint is such a gentle friend, and you're not bringing in anything that's super potent like, St. John's wort or valerian or anything that hefty, but just something gentle and mild like peppermint a lot of times can do the trick if your mind is all over the place and you just need to come back to center. So that's the third way to use peppermint in your home apothecary. Another reason to use peppermint is when you want energy without jitters. Now, if you are one of those people that you reach for either sugar or caffeine mid-afternoon because you're feeling the crash, reach for peppermint tea instead. And here's why. Peppermint is going to give you the energy. It's going to give you sort of the mental clarity that you're used to getting from something like caffeine or sugar, but you're not going to get the crash that comes later when it wears off. So peppermint is going to be a whole lot more gentle. So a few years ago, as part of healing from Lyme disease, I went off caffeine completely. And when I tell you I was a caffeine addict beforehand, that is not overstating things. I was on caffeine morning to night, okay? It's no wonder I slept terrible looking back on it. But we get in these habits and, it seems so harmless. Caffeine's everywhere, but it can have a massive effect on the body. It can stress your adrenals out. It can raise your cortisol levels. Like, there's just a lot of bad things that can happen if you are constantly filling your body with caffeine. So as part of my Lyme protocol, I was using homeopathics, and I couldn't be on caffeine while I took those. And I cold turkey cut it out. Now, I had a terrible headache at first, but peppermint tea helped me get through that. And, it brings sort of the same lift without giving the crash. And that's what I love about peppermint. Now, if you're going to want to like ease your way into breaking up with caffeine instead of being so cold turkey and harsh about it like I was, another thing you could do is get some dried peppermint and some black tea. Black tea is caffeinated, and do half and half. Do 50% black tea, 50% peppermint, and then gradually lessen the amount of tea and increase the amount of peppermint until you're drinking 100% dried peppermint. And when you do that, you're going to wean off caffeine very gently. So in hindsight, that's probably the way I should have done it, but I just did the cold turkey method and that worked too. Either way, peppermint brings energy and mental clarity without the crash. Now, this next use for peppermint is actually going to come in really handy this time of year, and that is for sinus pressure. So if you deal with sinus issues, congestion and pressure, peppermint is a great friend because it comes in and it opens you up. Just like, if you eat a piece of peppermint candy, or even if you just inhale some peppermint leaves, it's sort of an opening up effect, right? It clears the congestion away. So peppermint is wonderful for sinuses. And you don't just have to drink peppermint as a tea. There are lots of other ways to use it. So we talked about you could make an infused oil, but you could also do a steam. And what I mean by that is you're going to boil some water, put some dried peppermint in there, and you're going to just let it boil. And you're going to stand over that boiling pot, pull a towel over your head, and catch the steam, and you're just going to breathe it in. And that peppermint steam will open you up and clear those sinuses in a hurry. And then we have sore muscles. Peppermint is actually really good for muscle soreness. So if you're sore from working in your garden, or if you're sore from, working out too hard at the gym at the beginning of the year, whatever it is, peppermint can help. And if you go back a ways, I showed you guys how to make a pain relief salve with comfrey. You could totally add peppermint to that to give it an even bigger layer of muscle relief. A lot of times when you buy store-bought muscle rubs, they're mentholated, or they have eucalyptus, or they might have peppermint. So you can recreate the same thing at home by using peppermint that you grew in your garden. Peppermint is also really good for nausea, especially in children. Now, I know we kind of started this whole thing with me telling you how I used peppermint for nausea when I was pregnant, but it's also really good for kids. And one of my kids in particular, my oldest, when she was little, she would get such bad car sickness. It did not matter if we were going 5 minutes or 5 hours. She was going to throw up if we put her in the car every single time. And it made it really hard to go anywhere, really. And so we talked to the doctor about it, and they were like, give her Benadryl, give her Dramamine. We tried all these different things, but I just really didn't like giving my kid medicine that they didn't really need just to prevent car sickness. I don't know, it just didn't feel right. And so what I ended up finding was peppermint. And peppermint, either she wouldn't drink tea at that point, she was 2 or 3, but you could do an iced peppermint tea, and I think a little one would drink it, especially if you add honey. But what I would do is either peppermint gum or peppermint candy. You could even do peppermint oil, like a little dab on the back of the neck. But peppermint cuts nausea. And so whether we're dealing with car sick kids or morning sickness, pregnant mamas, or just a typical stomach bug situation, having peppermint on hand is so critical for families because this is a common thing. Nausea happens to everybody. So let's have something natural on hand to deal with it when it pops up. Another fun way to use peppermint is for brain fog. So peppermint sort of wakes up the mind. We talked about earlier if you're kind of stuck in bad thoughts, but what if you just have brain fog? So for me, this happens if I get exposed to gluten. I've been gluten-free for a long time. And one of the things that happens if I accidentally get a hold of gluten is I will feel like I am operating in a thick gray fog for about 3 days. It just really inflames me and everything feels off. And when that happens, it's really unsettling to like walk around and feel sort of you're in your body, but you're not quite in your body. And it's this weird, like disassociated, foggy feeling. If you've ever had that, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. That can happen for lots of reasons. And the only time I feel it now is if I eat gluten. But lots of things can trigger it. And, for each person, you have to kind of figure out what to do and how to cope. So like for me, let's say we go out to eat at a restaurant and I accidentally get glutened, okay? And by the time I get home, I'm gonna know. I'm gonna be sick. I'll have stomach sickness. I will get mouth ulcers that pop up within an hour. Like it's very obvious to me when I get glutened. And then by that night, usually within a few hours, the brain fog thing starts. 100% of the time, as soon as I realize that I've been glutened, I start drinking peppermint tea, and I will drink a lot of it. I'm talking 4 to 5 cups a day. And what that does is it sort of lifts the brain fog and kind of sets you free from being in that weird, like stagnant state while your body recovers. And then I will also even do like a peppermint steam if it's extreme to kind of like wake up my mind. You could even add peppermint to like bath bombs, or you could add it to a shower steam would be really nice. Something that you could put in your shower to breathe in. There's tons of recipes online for making shower steamers and bath bombs. But the big idea here is look for unique ways to use peppermint, whether you're taking it as a tea or whether you're using it, in a steam or an infused oil or a bath bomb or, anything else. You could even tincture it, and you could take peppermint tincture. So use it to your advantage. There's just so many ways to use this incredible, humble herb. So this next reason to have peppermint is probably not super relevant currently in January, but it sure will be in July. And peppermint is really wonderful at regulating body temperature. It's good when you're really hot to help you cool down. So for instance, for me, in the middle of July and August, when I'm pulling long hours out here in my garden, I'm going to be miserable, okay? Like there's just no getting cool from that kind of heat when it's in the 90s and you're in it all day, every day. But what I will do is I will drink peppermint tea instead of water as I'm working out here in the garden. A lot of times I will do like a peppermint sun tea, which is a little weaker and gentler than a traditional tea, where you pour boiling water over your herbs. With a sun tea, you put room temperature water over your herbs and you just set your jar in the sun and you let the heat from the sun bring the infusion about. Peppermint sun tea is an absolute staple in my house in the summertime. We all love it. Josh drinks it, the kids drink it, I live on it, especially when I'm working in the garden. So times this is helpful. Well, of course, in the summer to cool you down, but how about for my menopause ladies? When you're in the middle of a hot flash and you're roasting from the inside out, peppermint can help cool down that feeling. And last but certainly not least, peppermint is wonderful for bug bites and skin irritation. The brightness and the cooling properties of the peppermint are actually going to stop the itch. So whether you're dealing with an itchy mosquito bite, a poison ivy rash, or some other skin irritation, peppermint can cool it down and relieve the discomfort. So in this case, you're gonna go for like a peppermint infused oil. You could turn it into a salve. You can even make your own bug bite cream, but it's super helpful for itchy skin. And fun fact, bugs hate peppermint. So much so, in fact, that I will even do kind of my own natural pest control spray in the garden where I put peppermint tea in a spray bottle and I spray it on my plants. It works. They just really hate the smell of peppermint. Cats also really don't like peppermint. So if you have cats that are constantly in your garden, plant lots of peppermint and it might keep them out. So there's lots of ways to use peppermint, but there are a few big ideas that I want you to remember about this simple herb. Number one, peppermint moves what's stuck. This means that peppermint is going to get your digestive system moving, it's going to get sinus congestion moving out, and it's just going to help stuck things in the body become unstuck. So you can think of peppermint as a bit of an unclogging herb. Second, peppermint always calms what's overactive. So if you are overly hot, peppermint will cool it down. If your mind is overactive, peppermint will calm it down. If you are living in a state of continual brain fog, peppermint breaks it up. So peppermint is really, really good at getting in there and breaking things apart, unsticking things, and calming whatever is overactive in the body. Third, peppermint wakes up the sluggish things. So if you're feeling sluggish, if you're low on energy, peppermint is going to bring a wake-up call without a crash like you'd get for coffee. And finally, last, peppermint supports the body instead of forcing the body to do something. So what I mean is it comes in like a very gentle helper, and it comes in and it'll calm down a headache or it'll break up the brain fog, but it's gentle. Peppermint is never harsh, and you don't have to worry about having too much of it. You're pretty much always safe with peppermint. So here's the big idea and ultimately the big challenge. Grow some peppermint this year. And if you don't have space to grow it or you don't have time to tend it, just stock up on it. You can buy dried peppermint and keep it in your home. As a matter of fact, we sell dried peppermint in our shop. You can buy it and you'll have peppermint tea by the end of the week. So I'll link that for you below. But I want you to take some time and study peppermint. There's lots to learn here. It's a simple, humble herb that I feel like doesn't get nearly enough credit for all the amazing things it can do for your mind and body. So give peppermint a try, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Herbs That Heal.